All right, so you ready to really dig into this trading stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Always excited to talk about, how to improve trading.
Awesome. So you sent over a bunch of notes, articles, some book excerpts, all about improving trading performance.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's a lot of material, but there are some really key themes, some really interesting ideas in there.
Right. And what's striking to me is uh, it's all surprisingly straightforward advice.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Like at first glance, it's kind of like, well, duh, you
Yeah.
know.
But I have a feeling there's more to it than meets the eye. Kind of deceptively simple.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to read these things and be like, yeah, yeah, no, I should cut my losses. I shouldn't take stupid risks. But like actually putting it into practice, that's the real art, I think.
That's what we're here to do, right? Like kind of unpack all of this.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So, one of the first things that jumped out at me, one of the quotes was, "Stop taking stupid risks,"
Mm-hmm.
and it really got me thinking about some of the stuff we were talking about before we started recording. You mentioned that you've been kind of drawn to penny stocks lately,
Well, there's the potential for like huge gains.
right? And it just made me think, like, well, considering your long-term goals, like, is that maybe an example of what this advice is warning against? Like, is that a stupid risk?
Yeah, it's funny because stupid risk, it's not like a universal thing,
Right.
right? It's really about understanding like your own risk tolerance, what your investment goals are, and then making sure that your actions are aligned with that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So penny stocks, if you're someone who's looking for steady long-term growth,
Right.
that could be a stupid risk.
Yeah, exactly.
For somebody else, that might be, uh, perfectly acceptable.
Exactly. It all depends on your individual circumstances and goals.
So I guess it's about recognizing those impulsive urges in trading. It's like I know I shouldn't eat a whole tub of ice cream in one sitting,
Right.
but sometimes
But sometimes it's just so tempting, right?
it's right there.
Right
It's
there.
calling your name.
So it's like how do we have the discipline to kind of resist those urges in trading?
Well, I think, that leads us perfectly into the next piece of advice here, which is stop breaking your rules,
Yeah.
right? So, you've put together a really solid trading plan. You've thought about your risk tolerance, your goals.
Hmm.
You've got your entry points, your exit points. So much of it is just sticking to it, sticking to the plan, even when things get really emotional.
But isn't there a place for flexibility? Like, sometimes deviating from the plan a little bit can lead to some amazing opportunities.
Hmm.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You don't want to be like completely rigid,
Wow.
right? The key is knowing why you're deviating. Is it based on some sound analysis? You've looked at the market, conditions have changed,
Right.
or is it driven by, fear or greed, like those emotions that can really get us into trouble?
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at your trading journal, and there was that one swing trade that you mentioned,
Hmm.
the one that you ended up losing on,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking like, what if you had applied your 2% risk roll there?
That's a good point.
Like, how do you think that would have impacted the outcome for you?
I probably would cut my losses a lot sooner
Right.
and preserve more capital to use for other trades.
Exactly. And that's so key because, every dollar that we lose, that's a dollar that we can't use to make more money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really, really good point. So the next piece of advice, it was phrased as stop marrying one trade.
Hmm.
And that one really, really resonated with me because, well, frankly, I've been guilty of that myself.
I think we all have at some point. Or is
It's
that
so easy to get caught up in the potential
yeah.
of a particular trade and maybe ignore some of the warning signs.
You get so focused on what it could be that you kind of lose sight of what it is.
Right.
You know, in psychology, there's this thing called the sunk cost fallacy,
Yeah.
right? And that's that idea that, you know, we pour time and money and emotion into something,
Right.
and we're so reluctant to let go, even when it's clearly not working.
Yeah, we keep thinking, oh, but I've already put so much into it.
If I just stick with it a little longer,
Right.
it's got to turn around.
It has to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not always the case.
Unfortunately, no. So detaching from that outcome and really focusing on the process, that's so crucial.
So how do we practically avoid marrying a trade? Like, what are some concrete things that we can do?
Well, one really helpful technique is to predefine your exit points, both for taking profits and cutting losses.
Okay.
And do this before you even enter the trade.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that way your decisions are driven by your plan, not by your, emotional attachment to the trade.
That's a really good strategy. So speaking of letting go, the final piece of advice that we wanted to talk about, it really emphasizes cutting mistakes as crucial for improvement, and that's kind of counterintuitive, right?
It is because we're wired to avoid losses.
Right, like nobody likes to lose.
Nobody likes to lose, but accepting small losses quickly, that's key for long-term success in trading.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, one thing I noticed in your trading journal, you've been really meticulous about documenting your losing trades.
Yeah, I try to.
Which is fantastic because that gives us something to work with.
Yeah.
You know, we can look back at those and say, okay, where could you have cut your losses sooner?
Mm-hmm.
What were the emotional roadblocks that were preventing you from doing that?
I see what you mean. So by looking back, I can kind of identify some of those patterns and then hopefully work on recognizing those warning signs earlier in future trades.
Exactly. Turn those mistakes into valuable learning experiences. Refine your process. Become a more disciplined trader.
Cool. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Stop taking stupid risks.
Mm-hmm.
Stop breaking your rules. Stop marrying one trade.
All right.
And cut those mistakes quickly.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a common thread that runs through all of this. It's really about emotional control.
And discipline.
You've hit the nail on the head. The most successful traders, they're not necessarily the ones with the most complex strategies.
Yeah.
They're the ones who've mastered their emotions.
Yeah.
And their decision-making process.
That's a really powerful takeaway. So as you continue on your trading journey, remember it's not about finding the holy grail strategy.
Right.
It's about mastering yourself, your emotions, your discipline, your commitment to continuous learning.
Yeah.
That's what's going to lead you to consistent success.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's the real key.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this was fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.